So I haven't covered Chapter 2 of Fortnite on my channel yet. I've been making Fortnite lore videos for about half a year on my channel now, and I've covered Chapters 1 and 4, and I've even started Chapter 5, but I haven't touched Chapters 2 or 3 yet, mostly because they're the most lore heavy, which is ironic because those are the type of videos I make. So you would think those would be the ones I would want to talk about most, but since it's just a heavy load, I put it off until now. With the newest season of Fortnite, the character known as Midas made his return, along with members of his crew from Chapter 2 Season 2, so I thought it better time to cover his season trilogy from Chapter 2. This video will cover the story behind Chapter 2 Seasons 1, 2, and 3 since I feel the three of them tie in nicely together. And before we jump into the video, I just want to say I'm planning on putting together a separate Midas video that tells his story outside of these 3 seasons since there's enough content there, but that part of his lore isn't a main focus during those other seasons. In researching this video, I also found a few discrepancies behind what people believe his intentions were during these first 3 seasons, but just be on the lookout for that video within a month. But without further ado, let's get into the reign of Midas. As always, I try to explain my videos in a way that people who know nothing about Fortnite would understand, so for a quick explanation, Fortnite is a battle royale game where you and 99 other players compete to be the last player standing, and until this point in the story has been told mostly in the background through end of season live events, start of season cinematic trailers, and secret audio logs, so it can be difficult to keep track of everything going on, which is why I took up the challenge of explaining the lore as in-depth, accurately, and concise as possible without any fan theories mixed in. To quickly summarize the events leading up to Chapter 2, an iceberg came to the island, and inside of the iceberg was a being known as the Prisoner, and a creature known as the Devourer. The Prisoner caused a volcano to appear on the island, and the volcano erupted, struck the iceberg, and freed the Devourer after some time had passed. By the time the Devourer escaped, the volcano became dormant, and a mech was built to battle the Devourer. However, the mech absorbed too much power from the source of energy under the island known as a 0 point, and used the energy to defeat the mech, but caused the 0 point to become unstable, and a group known as the 7 attempted to contain the 0 point, but failed as the 0 point imploded into a black hole. During the time the 0 point was a black hole, certain messages were received and intercepted from an unknown source at the time.
Security encryption M7 authenticated. The containment field has stabilized. The bridge is intact. The 7 succeeded. Our manipulations averted disaster. The 0 point is ours, and the plan can continue. Recalculating loop shift. Initiating sub-loop text transmission. Redirecting. Received. Surprising is the sheer volume of matter resolved around the bridge. Extensive charting and analysis are required. Our best, redacted D4, team has been scrambled and inserted. We expect resistance and similar embedded agents. We've been quiet as long as possible, but the gaze of others may now be turned towards 0. A new world awaits. End transmission loop. Redirecting. Received.
And after some time had passed, the black hole had reformed the reality around it. And our perception shifts. We get a look at the team that was mentioned in the transmissions, but I'll get back to them in a bit. Over the course of the trailer, we get to see this team investigating the island, but the island is now different than the one we've come to know. We get a look at swamplands and a dam. The team takes some time to fish. They find some more rivers and streams, and also come across a power plant with chemical waste. As they continue their journey and expedition, they scale one of the mountains, getting an overview of the island. Suddenly, they hear a familiar sound and turn around, only to see the battle bus flying into the island. Inside the battle bus, variations of the team we've seen are arriving on the island as well, giving us a look at new and returning locations. We see a beachfront town called Sweaty Sands, the power plant called Steamy Stacks, and a port known as Dirty Docks. As the trailer goes on, we see the team from the start fighting in multiple battles against the characters who look very similar to them that were on the battle bus. We get a look at another new location, this time a farm called Frenzy Fields. More fighting continues throughout the trailer as we see these two teams, letting us know they're at the center of the story for this season. The trailer then ends as we zoom out and get a better look at the island for Chapter 2. Taking a look at the POIs I haven't name dropped yet and running through them really quickly, we have the small seaside town recognizable by its fish sticks restaurant, Craggy Cliffs, the small town with the garden center, Holly Hedges, the forest, Weeping Woods, a small lakeside town called Lazy Lake, a rundown factory that produces the famous slurp juice called Slurpy Swamp, which is located in the previously seen swamp biome, and a small European town called Misty Meadows. On top of these new POIs, we have 4 returning ones, those being the small towns of Salty Springs, Pleasant Park, the shopping district Retail Row, and the drive-in theater Risky Reels, now as a landmark. As we saw in the trailer, it looked like the black hole reset the island, scrambling it around, bringing in new and old POIs, which is why we see these locations. But now that we have that out of the way, let's move on to the characters in the story. From the messages, we saw a mysterious group manipulated the 0 point and sent out agents to research and explore the new island. These agents are part of the Ego Squad. We have Journey, a woman who's skilled in mountain climbing, Turk, a fisherman and survivalist, Ripley, a sentient being who's made up of Slurp and who appears to be a product of the Slurp Company's actions, Remedy, the medic of the squad, 8-Ball, the ninja assassin of the group decked out in 8-Ball themed armor, Cameo, the tech master and fashionista of Ego, Outcast, a fellow fisherwoman and rival to Turk but still part of Ego, and Bushranger, a spy who is a master of blending into the environment while staying incognito. But just as the black hole transmission said, resistance is expected, along with similar embedded agents. These agents are a group called Alter. As you saw in the trailer earlier, these agents look very similar to the ones from Ego. Almost like an alternate version of them. Almost like their alter egos. For their members, we have Hazard, a mercenary who is skilled in mountain climbing, Riptide, a fisherman and survivalist, Sludge, who's made of red slurp, Toxin, a chemical and biological scientist, Scratch, a cyborg ninja assassin with armor themed after a cue ball, Sheik, the fashionista of Alter, and Outcast alter ego who's also a fisherwoman. There's also Alter members who aren't variants of the members from Ego. For those members, we have Big Chuggus, a man/slurp monster hybrid and brute of Alter. He's similar to Bane from DC. We have Serana, another mercenary, and Stingray, another fisherman and whose outfit is based on the Danish Jaeger Corps. Metalmouth and Zadie are 2 elite soldiers part of Alter as well. And there's 2 more members who got introduced in this season, but I'll come back to them in a bit. For the main story portion, we honestly don't have too much this season. The story we did get was told through loading screens, but this season was mostly used to give players time to explore the island and to set up the following season's story. But through the loading screens, we can see players exploring the island, and then Turk and Outcast spending some time fishing. With the next screen, we see the birth of Ripley. Whether this be a flashback or in chronological order of screens, we aren't sure. But transitioning to the next screen, we get a look at Alter. It's unknown if they arrived before or after Ego, but we can see the characters Riptide, Toxin, Scratch, and multiple sludges making shady black market deals at the docks with the character known as Big Mouth. As we'll see in the loading screens, Ego only has Ripley, but Alter has an army of sludges, just showing how outnumbered Ego is. After this, members of Ego are split to cover more ground. Remedy, Turk, Journey, and 8-Ball are inside one of their bases, looking at a hologram of Scratch. Leading up to this point, we didn't know if Alter and Ego are the same people or not. Like, obviously the skins are similar in design to their counterparts, but there's a theory floating around that Alter is actually Ego's alter ego. Just think of it like Hulk and Bruce Banner, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where it's 2 personalities in the same body, and one personality doesn't realize what the other is doing. Because up until this point in the loading screens, we haven't seen the characters in the same room together, and the loading screen makes it seem like Scratch has committed some atrocity, and 8-Ball knows he needs to stop his other personality from coming out and causing more harm. But before we follow up with what happens with 8-Ball and Scratch, we cut over to the farm where we see Ripley and Cameo hiding from Toxin and a group of sludges. Not much else with this one, but moving on, we finally see 8-Ball and Scratch face off. Bushranger can also be seen in the background observing the events to relay back to Ego what's happening. We don't see 8-Ball or Scratch after this confrontation for the rest of the season, but it's believed that 8-Ball won, uploading a virus into Scratch as he's a cyborg, and causing him to become corrupted. After this, we see the rest of Ego escaping on a boat from Alter over the dam, causing explosions and chaos to aid their escape from Toxin and the army of sludges, ending the Alter and Ego confrontation for now. I know this hasn't been the most interesting, but like I said, it leads to something bigger. In Chapter 1 Season X, we saw a teaser for 5 skins, one of which bears a resemblance to the Shadow logo. Near the end of the season, the skin came to the game, Chaos Agent. And we got one more loading screen showing Chaos Agent watching over the events of the season with multiple Alter members on his computer screens. Through this, we would come to find out that Chaos Agent is the leader of Alter, running things from behind the scenes. The other Alter member that we got this season was Fusion. He had two variants like the other skins had, one being named Vex and the other being named Zev, which is Vex in reverse. The third style represents one of Chaos Agent's hidden goals over the season. Chaos Agent is a mad scientist obsessed with genetics. It's believed that he accidentally created Ripley and Big Chuggus through failed experiments, as we'll see through events in Season 2. It's also believed that he created all of the Alter agents in altering the Ego Agent's snapshots. At this point in time, we didn't know what snapshots are, but I'm sure all you Fortnite lore enthusiasts will know what a snapshot is, so I'll leave that for another video. But we believe Chaos Agent was attempting to create fusions of these characters, as seen with Fusion, one of his successful attempts. He was looking to create a powerful army, but for what purpose? And who? Well, that'll be answered at a later point, so keep watching to find out. But before we close this season, a couple events of importance happened over the course of the season. One of the last intercepted transmissions from the black hole mentioned that the gaze of others would now be turned towards Zero. Zero being the 0 point and also a name for the location where the Fortnite island is set. During the season, an island was located in the middle of the map called Island, the name being a play on the word island and also being a reference to how the entire island looks like an eye, with the center being the pupil. Early in the season, a being known as the Storm King appeared on the island and caused havoc to the characters for some time, and also bring Cube monsters from Chapter 1 Season 6 with them. I'll link that video if you want to learn more about them. The Storm King is actually the main antagonist of the Save the World mode in Fortnite that was actually around before the main Battle Royale mode. Going on a quick side note, Save the World is basically Fortnite's unfortunately abandoned PvE mode where you fight against waves of monsters called Husks. Something like 98% of the world's population were turned into these Husks in the Save the World story, and they were caused when the Storm King arrived, and also brought in the Storm, the same type of storm that's seen in Battle Royale. I know pretty much nothing about Save the World, but I'd love to make a video on it someday, so if you know anything about the mode, or can direct me to people who know more about it, just leave a comment below. But getting back to Battle Royale, the player stopped the Storm King before he could cause too much damage, and he went away for the time being, but with the Storm King being able to summon Cube monsters, that arose some questions, so keep that in the back of your head. The Millennium Falcon also came to the island this season while on the run from the First Order, which takes place between episodes 8 and 9 of Star Wars. This event was pretty much just an advertisement for Star Wars Episode 9, with the action part transitioning into an interview and preview for the movie, and then back to the action part, so we'll just move on from this one. But at the end of the season, objects in the house on Island started turning gold, and based on the title of this video, I'm sure you know what comes next. Season 2 started with a trailer. We see a man sitting at a table as he turns his chair, revealing his golden hands as he presses a button, signaling his crew. I'm sure you all can guess who this is. The man of the hour, Midas. We cut away to Lynx from Chapter 1 being chased down by soldiers in uniform. She gets a call from Midas and suits up, easily taking down the soldiers. The scene transitions to Peely, enjoying some slurp juice, straight, until he gets the call, flipping the secret bookshelf, getting a quick glimpse at a secret character, and coming out looking quite dashing. Moving over to the lighthouse, at the top we see a new character named Brutus getting his call and dropping Bendy to his demise. We then move near the dam as we see the Ego Squad, and Journey gets a call, abandoning her squad for more pressing matters, sending them off the dam. Next to get the call is Bushranger, acting inconspicuous as always, before finally moving to the base of operations of Midas, the Agency. We see a new cat character named Meowscles who stands up revealing how buff he is as the camera pans out revealing the agents and Midas's crew, and showing the theme for this season, Top Secret. Now, if you have a keen eye, you might have noticed that the agency had the logo of Ego on it and carrying through from the previous season, but this season they're not called Ego. I want to play the Battle Pass trailer for you guys and just let you listen.
Welcome to the Agency. You come highly recommended. This is your hideout. Buy the Battle Pass to recruit this team of agents. Meowscles, a feline enforcer that can take some serious licks. Midas, a mastermind with the golden touch. Maya, an elite specialist that becomes uniquely yours. And more. Throughout the season, you'll complete missions to earn a bonus variant for your Battle Pass agents, Ghost or Shadow. Choose wisely. You'll also embark on limited time operations that will change the fate of the island forever. Your future begins with buying the Battle Pass. Earn your team of agents 1,500 V-Bucks, and all new items. The future is in your hands. We know you'll make the right decisions. Good luck.
So in this season, Ego is now known as Ghost, and Ultra is now known as Shadow. A lot of people believe that the names of the groups changed due to retconning or story changes or whatnot, but I'm of the opinion that Ego is just a smaller division of Ghost, and Ultra and Shadow. And both groups are just branches of Midas's crew. It's kind of like how the US military is divided up into different branches like the Army and Navy, but then those branches are divided up even more, like how the Army has the Green Berets and the Navy has the Navy SEALs. But basically, the story behind this season is that after the fighting between Midas's two groups, he came to the island to take control over the situation and put a stop to the fighting. Throughout the season, members of Midas's crew are forced to choose sides in the conflict, which is where we get the story for this season, rather than loading screens or quests. For this season, I'm going to be talking about members and story bits together as we go. Starting off, we have Midas. He's had so much lore told about him over the course of the Fortnite storyline since his debut this season, but in this season we know him as a criminal mastermind who runs a spy employment organization known as the Agency. Midas is heavily inspired by King Midas from Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, Midas is a biological son of Zeus, who is the king of gods of Mount Olympus and the god of thunder, lightning, sky, law, and order. There's many different variations of Midas in mythology, and I don't want to get too convoluted or off track, so please bear with me. But basically the god Dionysus, otherwise known as Bacchus, the god of wine, vegetation, fertility, and a bunch of other things, had this mentor Silenus, who is the god of drunkenness and winemaking, and also a satyr, which is basically a male nature spirit that's half horse for the legs. Silenus got drunk and went missing, and Midas found Silenus in Midas's rose garden, helped him out, and returned him to Bacchus. Bacchus offered to grant Midas a wish, and Midas wished to be able to turn anything he touched into gold. Midas was happy at first, but soon realized it was a curse because even his food and drinks turned into gold, and he couldn't eat them. One story even says that when Midas's daughter came to him upset that the roses were gold and lost their fragrance and became hard, Midas tried to embrace his daughter to comfort her, but accidentally turned her into gold. But getting back to the Fortnite story, Midas also had the golden touch, which is how he was able to fund his organization. We can assume Midas in Fortnite had a similar origin story to his Greek counterpart, since Fortnite isn't shy from taking mythological and pop culture characters and putting their own spins on them. In this season, Midas guards the Agency, which replaces Island and takes up the whole middle island. If we take the elevator down in the Agency, we come across the next member of Midas's crew, Brutus. Brutus is one of Midas's right-hand men and the brute of the crew, doing all the heavy lifting and isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. Brutus guarded the alcove known as the Grotto, and he and his henchmen ended up joining Shadow during the season. Moving down the elevator, we come across Tiantina. She's the explosives expert of the group and guards the oil rig that got built on the island this season, owned by Spillex, the oil company that owns the gas stations that can be found around the island. Tiantina ended up being the second member to join up with Shadow. Around this time, underwater hatches were constructed around the Agency, but we'll get back to this. The third member we see is Meowscles. Meowscles is a bit of an interesting character in that he has some type of relationship with Lynx, the one with the Black Panther style catsuit from Chapter 1, and who's also one of the agents Midas called in during the opening cinematic. These two have probably been in Midas's crew for some time and fell in love over the course of working together. I don't know how that works though, considering he's a cat and she's a human, but he does have humanoid features about him, and he's able to speak the same language as all the other characters can, but I'd rather just not think about that, so moving on. Meowscles guards the Marigold during this season. It's a yacht owned by Midas, either named after the golden marigold flower, or most likely Midas's daughter in Greek mythology, Marigold. Although we'll learn at a later point who this is really named after. He ends up also joining Shadow like all of his previous crewmates, but during the season gets kicked off the yacht by one marvelous maniac with the help of Contract Killer, who we see distract Meowscles with a ball of yarn. This implies Contract Killer joined with Ghost, as a merc with a mouth had Ghost henchmen assisting him on the yacht after taking over with Giller's help. Meowscles went on to make a home in the cardboard box factory on the island and could occasionally be seen crying after losing the yacht. But now let's talk about Wade Wilson, or as he's more popularly known, Deadpool. As I previously said, he's a mercenary who is known to crack jokes and break the fourth wall, and is from Marvel Comics. In the Deadpool movies, he's played by Ryan Reynolds, which is actually spurred from a joke Deadpool made in the comics. He basically has a superpower to heal from anything and is more of an anti-hero. In the comics he had cancer and in an attempt to cure it joined up with the Weapons X program. It's basically the 10th version of the super soldier serum that created Captain America. X being the Roman numeral for 10 and also a play on the X-Men, as Weapons X uses mutations for their soldiers. Deadpool was given the healing powers of Wolverine, as Wolverine was another test subject with the program giving him his adamantium skeleton. When Deadpool got the healing powers, it helped him heal from everything and also super accelerated his cancer, disfiguring him and putting him in constant pain. Getting back to Fortnite, he was more than likely hired by Midas since Deadpool is a mercenary, but he got the short end of the stick and didn't have room in the agency, so he made residence in the bathroom until he took over the yacht, supporting Ghost. Guaco's Tacos was also a supporter for the party Deadpool threw on the yacht. The next main member to talk about is Skye. She's a little bit of an adventurer with a magical companion named Ollie who can transform his body into various shapes like a hat or glider. She's basically Fortnite's version of Finn from Adventure Time, with Ollie being Fortnite's version of Jake. Skye commanded the outpost located at the Shark. It's a shark-shaped island with a mansion on it, but after Skye joined with Ghost, converted it into a prison to hold members of Shadow. And with that, all the leading members of Midas' crew are covered, but there's a few others who we met this season. We have Peely, who was revealed to be a secret agent this season, and we also saw Bushranger and Journeygan in this cinematic, reinforcing they're a part of the crew as well. Along with the new member, Tech, who's a technology expert. We of course got introduced to Maya, who's a weapons expert. Other members we met were Tara, an elite soldier, Rue, an assassin, and Renegade Shadow, a double agent. During the season we got to see Chaos Agent again, taking 3 characters, Jonesy, Bandolette, and Leviathan, and conducting experiments on them, similarly to what we saw in the previous season with Ripley and Big Chuggus, converting them into Slurp hybrids. With Chaos Agent being the leader behind Shadow, it's not unreasonable to think these 3 would also be Shadow agents. Back to the story though, around the time of the Shark changing into a prison, a special suit could be seen at the oil rig, and the hatches around the agency started glowing purple, both teasing the end of the season, and if you looked up into the sky, a glowing purple object could be seen, with stages being set up on the islands north of Sweaty Sands. Anybody who's a fan of Fortnite would know that this was a tease for one of the best Fortnite events of all time, Travis Scott's astronomical event. Now, personally speaking, I'm not a big fan of Travis Scott, not that I dislike any of his music or anything, I just don't actively listen to him, although the few songs of his I do know I enjoy. But this event had amazing visuals along with the songs that go with them, and astronomical is a perfect word to describe this out-of-the-world experience. The small moon-sized planet called Astroworld arrived above the island. It was basically comprised of a bunch of disconnected lanes with a giant amusement park covering the surface of the planet with a speaker at its core. The variant of Travis Scott we see in this event has reality warping powers and takes various forms while taking the players to various locations. At first, Travis Scott appeared normally, although as a giant, performing sicko mode. Part of his skin was removed as he rained fire over the island, revealing his Terminator-style endoskeleton and performing stargazing. He stopped raining fire and switched to the song Goosebumps before emitting lights all over the island. He fell into the water, bringing the players in Astroworld with him, now performing highest in the room, and now also in his Astro Jack form. Although it's debated if Astro Jack and Travis Scott are the same being or not. He rose from the water, now in his fully powered Astro Jack form, with his head a planet, emitting more lights and shifting gravity all over the island, continuing his sicko mode performance. For the finale, he brought the players over the Great Expanse, flying over multiple islands while performing the Scots, and also sitting on a planet with multiple planets orbiting him, and finally walking across Astroworld before bringing the players back to the island. Now, you may be asking, why am I covering this so in depth? Well, normally for a crossover event like this, I wouldn't, but Astroworld appeared a couple seasons later during a main story event, which tells me it has more significance to the Fortnite storyline than a lot of the things that go on in the game. Plus, I want to show off some of the visuals for people who haven't seen it. Since the event would obviously put a copyright strike on my channel, I opted not to include the audio or put the full thing in, so I'll link the full event in the description for you guys to go check out, so make sure you go watch it after the video if you want to relive the event or experience it for the first time. But now, we near the end of Chapter 2, Season 2. If we go back to the agency, we could take the elevator down to Midas' room. He had many different trophies ranging from helmets he's collected from various characters, now turned to gold, and statues of characters he's turned to gold. A golden scepter can be seen as well. We would come to find out that this is a scepter of Oro. The presence of Oro brought up numerous debates in the Fortnite community. He's part of the Midas' Revenge set, is golden, and has a scar over his eye exactly like Midas. Many people speculate that Oro and Midas are the same person, whether a past or future version of each other, or a snapshot. Like I said earlier, we didn't know what snapshots were at this point, so check out one of my other videos to learn more on snapshots. I'm more inclined to believe Oro is a Roman multiversal variant of Midas. In the past, we've seen multiversal variants of characters with Drift and Catalyst, for example. Although Oro is a Spanish word for gold, Oro has Roman attire with the imagery of the sun god Sol on his garments. In Greek mythology, Midas was also cursed by Apollo, who was known as the sun god at times, so there's connections there also. But looking back at Midas's office, he has a framed picture of a girl we haven't seen before. She has goggles, the Shadow logo on her shirt, and is heavily tatted, so all we knew at this time is that she has some connection to Midas, but we'll learn more about her very soon. But the last thing to note is the windows in Midas's room overlooking some giant device of sorts. What this device does? Well, we're about to find out. And around this time, all the hatches around the agency started bubbling, and strangely enough, the storm started behaving differently than usual. We got one more look at Midas, looking at the suit mentioned earlier, as the device began to power up. Panning outside of the agency, alarms started to go off as the storm began moving in, surrounding the agency. The hatches in the water open up as strange energy pylons rose from the water, one by one. An electrical field began emanating from the agency as the storm started intensifying. Before an explosion occurred from inside the agency. And one giant pylon rose from it. This is the device we saw through the windows in Midas's office. The center pylon generated a giant ball of energy, started radiating a field of energy over the agency, and connected to the smaller pylons with energy beams. The energy beams transmitted from the smaller pylons to the storm, and for the first time in Fortnite history, the storm started retracting. However, as the device was pushing back the storm, space around the character started warping, and the character teleported to an unknown office with a computer screen monitoring the device, a mug with the ghost logo on it, and 3 files, showcasing Midas, Lynx, and the girl who was seen in Midas's office in that picture frame. However, we only got to spend a few seconds in the office as space warped the character back, but things had taken a turn for the worse. Smoke was billowing off the pylons as they started to malfunction due to the uncalculated power of the storm. The storm blackened as it overcorrected from being forced back. Until suddenly, the device got a second wind, going into maximum overdrive, fighting back the storm. with the amount of power output shifting the storm's colors. And then finally, with enough power, the storm was defeated once and for all and finally subsided, with rainbows signaling the end. The pylons retreated back into the water as their purpose was fulfilled. But just as things seemed okay, a bolt of lightning came out of nowhere, striking the middle pylon, setting sparks flying, and the center pylon back down. But then suddenly, the storm kicked up again, as space warped one more time.
No, everything is not stable over here. We are actually... Janice, dial the resonance actuator to 7.2. Now, please, yes, right now.
I'm on it.
Wait, hold on. It's not just a storm. What does that mean? Must be connected to the loop. There's no way we could have predicted that it would react this way.
Upon arriving to the office yet again, we dropped in on a conversation right outside of the office, revealing information that would later become huge to the storyline. But that was for another time, as the character arrived back on the island. Now things had taken a turn for the worse, as the storm had overcorrected so much, it turned into a massive flood. Sharks could be seen swimming in the waters, and Deadpool's yacht could be seen ready to tip over the edge. And then the character warped one more time.
And that worked? How long do you think it'll hold? Good. Everything is, starting to stabilize here. Nothing seems to be... What the... How are you even... Wait. Can you hear me?
And that was Jonesy, although he was different than we had ever seen him before, this time in a suit, and one of the only characters we have heard speaking coherently outside of the scientist in his audio recordings. Like I said though, all those secrets and mysteries would be revealed at a later point, as we cut back to the battle bus, flying over the now flooded island, setting the stage for the next season. At some point the waters leveled down, but not entirely by the start of the next season. We see Midas on a raft, wallowing in his sorrows after his device failed. Swimming behind him though is a shark, which quickly ate him. There's controversy on whether Midas actually died from the shark attack or not, but I'll save that for the Midas video. We see Meowscles water skiing as he's pulled by the shark. He passes by a house on the water, and we see a new character named Ocean brawling Brutus as she knocks him out and his helmet off, claiming it as her own. Out of the water next to Meowscles rises a DC character, Aquaman. He fist bumps Meowscles and tells him to watch out before submerging again, and Meowscles goes on to cause a little chaos, ruining the Brat's barbecue and crashing into Jelly's trailer. He rides over some wet cement being put down by a new character named Jules, who you might recognize. He grabs onto a helicopter before dropping back down and causing a little more chaos. As we see this season's theme, Splashdown. So for this final season of the video, there isn't really any story. Over the course of this season, the waters receded down to normal levels, and that's pretty much all that happened, although we did get a few characters that are worth mentioning and are joined up with Ghost and Shadow. The first one we should talk about is Jules. She's the girl who was seen in the photograph in Midas' office and in the files during the event. And I didn't mention this before, but in the loading screen for the device event, her reflection could actually be seen, showing she was behind Midas. Jules is a very talented engineer who built a perpetual energy generator at the age of 12 and assisted Midas in building the device used in the event. We didn't learn too much about her until later seasons, but many people speculated that due to their close relationship, Jules is Midas' daughter. And a few seasons later, this information was proven to be true. Since that was revealed at a later point, I won't go too in depth on their relationship, so I'll save that for the Midas side story video. Jules took over the agency this season and reconstructed it into the Authority, a highly guarded base, now with the giant wall surrounding it that protected it against the Flood, and now with the Shadow logo on it, as Jules was the last main public Shadow member active during the season. Moving southwest, a makeshift base guarded by ghost henchmen was constructed. This was the Fortilla and was guarded by Ocean, who could be seen with the ghost logo on her vest and occasionally wearing Brutus's ghost helmet. I know you might be confused because last season Brutus joined up with Shadow, but if you remember from the trailer, he was seen in his ghost outfit, so it's speculated he betrayed Shadow and turned to Ghost, but we don't know for sure. We never really learned too much about Ocean, but the Fortilla was one of the last main ghost bases, and opposite to the Authority this season. If you remember in the last season, Meowscles took over the box factory after getting kicked off of the yacht. This season, the box factory was upgraded into a makeshift base with a gas station and a fortified cat home. A new character named Kit took over with some robotic henchmen he built. Kit's actually the son of Meowscles and more than likely Lynx as well. Don't ask me how that's possible though. There's a whole history with the Meowscles family tree that I might have to make a video on at some point, or maybe I'll just talk about in the Midas video. I'm not sure yet. And those are pretty much the only main characters that are important for this season. Of course, Aquaman appeared this season, specifically the version from the DCEU played by Jason Momoa. And that makes sense since the map was mostly water, but as the waters receded this season, a location known as Coral Castle appeared in the top left of the map, revealing ancient ruins. This was most likely Atlantis, or at least owned by the Atlanteans, explaining why Aquaman showed up along with Atlantean fish sticks this season. Atlantis has a whole thing with it that I might have to make a future video on too, but we'll see. And I guess since I gave Deadpool this treatment, I will for Aquaman too. He's from DC Comics and he's the king of Atlantis, as well as being half human and half Atlantean. He has super strength, underwater breathing, and the ability to talk to fish. He might not seem that cool, but recently in DC Comics he uses fish talking abilities to get the Kraken to fight Godzilla, and that was pretty dope, so don't sleep on Aquaman. But as I said, all that really happened this season was the aftermath of Midas' failures and fall from grace, with his remaining factions scrambling around, rebuilding, and waiting for the flood to subside. But near the end of the season, something interesting happened. A strange object fell from the sky and left a crater on the island. In this crater was a strange hammer, and many of you might know who this belongs to, and runic symbols got burnt into the ground as well, but that's for a future video. And with that, the reign of Midas has come to a close, along with Chapter 2, Seasons 1, 2, and 3. I know the story in these seasons was a little lacking, and I hope I did a good job of encompassing the story as best as possible, and I hope you guys can walk away from this video with something you didn't know before. If you guys have watched for this long in the video, I just want to thank you for watching, because it means a lot to me. The next videos I have planned for the channel are, of course, the Midas side story, Chapter 2, Season 4, where I'm going to do a couple things differently, but I think you'll enjoy it. The next part for the Nintendo theory I'm working on, and if you guys haven't seen the intro video for that, make sure you check out because it's a fantastic series I'm starting. Then there's also Chapter 5 Season 2 currently going on in Fortnite that's due to end in May. I don't know if that will be a standalone video or grouped up with the Chapter 5 Season 3 whenever that comes out, so we'll see. And also I just uploaded a new video on my mystery channel too, so make sure you check that out. The link will be in the description. But I think I've talked long enough in this video. I don't want to take up any more of your time today, so make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy this video and want to see more content from me. Leave a comment if I missed something, if there's any questions you have, or even for future video topics or requests. Share this video with friends to help the channel grow. Thank you guys one more time, and I'll see you guys in the next one.